This conference will now be recorded.
Good morning. Welcome to the May OCP Server Project monthly meeting. Go ahead and get started. As far as announcements, the Global Summit is on for November 9th and 10th. The web address there to get more details on it. I didn't get an update on recently on how much of it's going to be in person, how much of it's going to be remote. We will have a call for papers coming in next month to get some papers for that and content for that. And IC elections are coming up in June, so you should start seeing some invites or some email on that shortly. I did rearrange the agenda a little bit, starting off with Alan, since he's has a conflict in the second half of the meeting, so we can go ahead and start with Alan. Alan, do you want to present, or you?
Yeah, I've got some slides, so let me just, you can hear me okay, right?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, I'll just share the main screen and I'll press play. Okay, can you see the front slide?
Yes.
Okay, great. Morning, everybody. I've got a little bit of an update for you on the activities in the OCP HPC sub-project. So just a reminder of the phases we've got going on. We were in phase 1, I think, the last time I updated you. Basically, we've got a lot of ideas around the metrics, but we simplified it to the highest performance at the lowest power and lowest cost is really the core drivers to all of this in terms of what we can do from a hardware architecture perspective. So we've moved towards phase 2, and we're just really kicking off the collaborate on creating the white paper, proposing various concepts. And we're now partitioning the overall system view we've been talking about to individual specialized sections. And we've not started phase 3 yet. So just other related activities, we actually submitted a panel session. It's Supercomputing 21. We haven't heard back whether we've got that yet, but the title was Open, Modular, Flexible, and Composable Domain-Specific Computing from the Open Compute Project. We've also been sharing the concepts with potential collaborators and receiving some good feedback, both with startups and large incumbents. I've refined the base level architecture for the white paper analysis, and I'll touch on that in the next slide or two. And also, in the interest of sharing, I actually presented the thermal considerations that we're looking into to the ACS immersion work group. So I'll touch on that as well. So in terms of refining the OM-HPC module, if you guys remember what was presented before, it's slightly tweaked where the base specifications start. So common across all OM-HPC modules, if we build these, support a 1 kilowatt processor accelerator. Effectively, base spec says there's up to 320 transceiver lane count per module. That will be achieved with 16 4C/4C plus connectors. We can support up to 4 NIC 3.0 modules or up to 16 E3.S or E1.S modules. And for cabling between for the topologies between the modules, the 8 modules, we're choosing near stacked by 8 connectors for fabric interconnect, supported by 5 tall wiring channels. So you can see with the modules, we've got an opportunity to be able to pack the wiring in nicely in between the modules. So you can imagine this is like a JBoss drawer where all the drives are accessible and removable from the top, and all the powerful processors are at the bottom mounted to the cold plate. Again, I'm assuming people have seen my previous presentations on this. So this is our starting point. It feels a little bit more refined than some of the earlier ones. And we've now got, in the white paper, we've got some activities going on in the various aspects of this and seeing how viable they are or not. So on that note, I presented to the immersion cooling work group, which gave us a focus on the thermal side. Generated a lot of interest, and I kicked off some further active discussions. So basically, the way I presented it was, we've got the cold plate, the water-cooled big cold plate at the bottom. with 8 1 kilowatt modules. You know, we've got to cool 8 kilowatts, so that's water cooled. But we've got, assuming the thinner E3 modules, not the double width ones, we're assuming roughly 15 watts per EDSFF module. And there's 128 modules there. So we've got about 2 kilowatts. So there's an 80-20 spread between the water cooled and the air cooled. One challenge that we will have is E3 and E1. The actual cooling fins that go in the opposite direction is an industry standard right now, and we would need them to go horizontally. So that's a challenge for this architecture with the way the industry is trending on E3 on the E modules. But I also put forward the idea of immersion puddle cooling. So once you've got the base plate at the bottom here, we have the potential to actually, instead of do the double thermal transfer I've got in the cold plate design, you could actually dip the processors, because they're facing down, into a liquid puddle. And that would give you super efficient computing, and you don't have to have a fully immersed bath. So that was the interest there, the concept I presented. And it would be viable in a standard 19-inch rack drawer, unlike these fully immersion boxes. It would also keep the weight down. I didn't realize this, but water is 1 gram per cubic centimeter and aluminum is 2.7. So we'd actually, if we got rid of a lot of aluminum, we'd actually save weight inside the chassis as well here, which would be a great benefit. I think this is a patentable idea, but after discussing it with a few people, I decided to donate it in the spirit of OCP. And so it's for everybody to pull on this idea. And that's one of the objectives of OCP HPC. And on that note, I would just like to give a shameless plug for Analysway. I need to make a living as well, and I have a consulting practice. So if you like some of my ideas and you'd like me to help you in being successful, this is what we're doing. This is the things we're pushing in the HPC work group, and we need the experts of all the disciplines. And so I'm available in a consulting capacity. Thank you very much for that. That's my update. Any questions?
Very interesting.
Yes, thank you. Next up, we have OEM sub-project update, either Whitney or Tianyi.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I will have some from Intel to update the monthly for our group. Can you let some?
So you want me to share?
Yes.
Okay. You can see my screen?
Yes, we can.
All right. So today we're going to give some update on the OEM 2.0 development, and we're going to talk about the some of the connector pin list lockdown, and also we have access 2 of the connector from 2 different vendors. One is the Molex, another one is the TE for the 112 gig the OEM to UBB interconnect. And we also did some end-to-end channel loss assessment as well. Beside that, we also take a quick look on the 1000 watt PI assessment from the UBB to the OEM through the connector. And last one that we're going to, I think Whitney is going to talk about the OCP Ultra Slim Power Module. Okay. So here is the list that we have looked into comparing to the 1.0 and 2.0. We decided to remove the QSFP-DD sideband signal from the OEM because what we're seeing is that for the training on the design that they are going to be a lot of QSFP-DD on the UBB, and that is with that I think that the OEM will not be very effective to control all the QSFP-DD module. So we decided to move it to the UBB. but we still have a certain amount of a level of the control from the OEM as well. And I think the 48 volt, we also increased the pin count, right, from the 16 pin to 100 pin. We come up with the two. One idea is that we're going to split the power to two connector. So I'm going to talk about the detail later on. And also for the 12 volt that we plan to support the low power module in the 1.0, we decided to remove that from the 2.0 because we are not seeing the benefit for the OS system to power 300 watt device. So we are going to training to 1000 watt. So anything below 300 watt will still have to go with the 48 volt power supply. Okay. And here is the power splitting that we propose into the 2.0, and we increase the pin count on one of the connector, but at the same time we also duplicate the same power pin count to another connector. With that, it will provide a flexibility to the OEM supplier or the system designer, right? So they can use one of the connector or use both of the connector based on their thermal boundary condition. So that will give the systems vendor and the OEM supplier the flexibility into the design. Okay, so as I mentioned before, that we also evaluate the TE, and the more one is still based on the 1.0, but this is a TE introduction. The form factor is the same, but with slightly less pin count, but it will meet the 112 gig PAM4 requirement. So this is something that we still working closely with TE and also the Molex to see which one is the right fit for the OEM and the UBB spec.
Question about the connector.
Yes.
Yeah, I think in some of other module work, we figured out a way to have connector selection with multiple vendors, and they have a open spec to align to. I'm wondering if this is part of the consideration while we are working on the OEM 2.0.
We have not looked into that. Yeah, I think that is a good idea, and we should definitely work closely with you and see how can we work together on this one.
Well, I think basically is it part of the ask or consideration from
right
the
now,
work group? Yeah.
In terms of the connector selection, we still rely on the member, right? Like maybe the supplier to do the assessment on these two connector, and then we are going to make a call which one is the right one for them. So I think this is the plan for now.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, please considering to have a multi-source strategy in
Yes.
enablement.
Sure. Okay. So the workstream also did some assessment on the end-to-end channel analysis based on the existing UBB, and I'm not going to go to the detail. Based on the channel analysis, I think what we can do is that we should be able to meet the 30 dB channel loss budget, but we're going to look into the how to improve that further to give more margin to the end-to-end channel loss. Especially, we try to see if we can reshuffle some of the UBB pin SerDes port map, and to reduce the trace length from like 15 inches to like 12, 13 inches. This is something the workstream is currently looking into to give more margin for the channel loss. And we also provide the guidance on the OEM as well. The same guidance, which is 8 dB, and we split it up to more on the package module and the UBB. So it looks promising, but we're still going to continue to assess this. Okay. And we also did a quick check on the power PI analysis, and because of the one kilowatt, right? I think there's a concern that would it over current based on the connector spec, right? And what we did is that it depends on the design constraint, and you might have the like worst case 1.2 amp current, right, passing through one of the connector. So this is something that the workstream is going to work with the power workstream together to see how to improve the to balance the current delivery to the OEM. But so far, with the two connector solution, we do not see an issue with the overcurrent on the pin. Okay. And another discussion that we just in the workstream, that for the OEM 2.0, we are also looking into increasing the length of the OEM from 165 to 170, and this is something that we still going to check all the OEM supplier and also work with the UBB workstream as well to see if there's any implication if we increase the from 165 to 170. The history that we the background that we want to change this one is that if you look at the trend of the OEM, they are going to be a lot more design coming in with the larger package, higher power, and also a higher service count. So that we do want to reserve some space to accommodate the training. And we're going to ask the some of the OEM supplier on this as well, and their feedback, and also also the interconnect topology port mapping, which I mentioned, to reduce the to improve the channel loss budget. Okay, that is from my side. Thank you.
Yeah, so basically we are asking for feedback for the dimension change and also the interconnect port mapping, because those two are different from our OM 1.0 and OAI 1.0. So looking for feedback in the next few like weeks, we may like make the decision. So please let us know if you have any thoughts or feedback. Okay, John, that's from OI Group.
Sorry, talking to mute. Okay, thank you. Next up, we have Damien with the OCP NIC 3.0 subproject update.
Sure. You hear me?
Yes, and we can see your slides.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so we are still in the process of adding the TSFF, the tau small factor, into the NIC spec. So far, we have done the 2D drawings in the draft, and we still need to figure out how we want to work on the test fixtures model and how do we do the test fixture faceplate. So that is the one that is getting the draft released to the wider community. We'll work on it in the next 2 weeks. We'd like to share the pictures of our second revision of the mechanical feed test fixtures. This version works fine for Chris. He went to the lab and checked it out. So the first one, we do have some stiffness and we couldn't also see the NIC. So the second revision created based on ArcLink. I personally felt this is much better, and we are ramping up the production in our lab to supply to some of the key mechanical contributor company, so that we can get additional feedbacks from the community. Any questions to this before I move on? Yeah, if not, I'll talk about the OCP NIC thermal group. So the last month I kind of mentioned about, yeah, we are restarting the thermal group because we do see thermal challenge in the OCP NIC. So the meeting is now a kickstart. So we have the meeting in the first and 3rd of Wednesday of the month at 10 Central Time. So the area that we are first going to look on, the most immediate one is the KSPP-DD thermal model that we would like, if possible, we would like to have a common model across companies so that we can evaluate the differences. But that is an investigation. It may or may not turn out. There is also discussion that the new Tosmo Flotter support the OCP ISS. After the KSPP-DD, we should look into the OCP ISS. And because of the new form factor that we are proposing into the draft spec, so the thermal test section needs to be updated. It will be investigated in the thermal work group, and also new and more exotic thermal solutions also will be investigated in this work group. In the past, we have been fairly using like the passive aluminum for most of the cases, but we might want to look into more advanced versions moving forward. So yeah, currently we have the system vendor, we have connector vendors, we have heatsink vendors, obviously we have NIC vendors in the thermal work group. Yeah, but we will always welcome more server vendors because your design could be different from what we are thinking and what we know. Hence, we would like to seek server group participant. And yeah, if you'd like to join us, please send an email to me or Ian.
Damien, this is Siamak.
Yes, Siamak.
Has there been any conversation about a cable connected NIC using the same connector that you have on the motherboard, but extend the reach to the same NIC3, but using a cable?
You mean more like rising up?
If the NIC cannot be exactly in that particular position that's designed to plug into the motherboard,
yeah,
if it needs to be farther away,
mm-hmm.
A cable connection into the same connector could solve that problem. I'm just wondering if anybody has mentioned that as a use case, or there's any investigation in cable connected version of that connector.
Yes, as I know, some of our community members do have design like that, like a rise up cable design. I don't think they are demonstrated in OCP yet. As I know, there is one plan to demonstrate, but I don't think it is there yet. But yeah, if you're interested,
yeah, Damien, this is Whitney. So I do see there's a Gen Z cable by 16 Gen Z 4C cable available for such use case. So Siamak, if you're interested, I can connect you to the cable vendor.
Yes, yeah. But this one is a 4C plus, and that's the first point. Second point.
I think so. I can check 4C and 4C plus. Do they have both? I think I remember we do have both.
Okay.
Yeah, I can connect you. Yeah, to the cable vendor.
Yeah.
Okay, because that use case is important for the modular architecture that we've been thinking about as well. So yes, it will be good to collaborate on that. Very good. Thanks.
Yep.
Sure. Let's connect offline.
Yep. Yeah. Thanks, Winnie. Yeah, I also can connect you as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's all from me for this week, John. John, you there?
Yes, thank you, Damien. Anybody else have any questions or comments for Damien on the OCP 3.0? All right. Next up, we have Bappy covering the ODSA subproject update.
Sorry, speaking on mute there. Hey, so we had a pretty eventful May in terms of our weekly meetings. They continue to be pretty active. We had a fairly good follow-on presentation from Letty in France on their work on chiplets. Kenneth from OpenHBI, our OpenHBI workstream, delivered a status update. There's a lot of interest on the HBM-based die-to-die PHY. We had a presentation from Jana at Terry Circuits on a new alignment technology they're working on. And a company called Proteantex presented an idea on how to monitor semiconductors to gather sort of manufacturing data and drift data during operation. And finally, we sort of closed off the week with Google's come up with a very ambitious initiative on an open chiplets chassis. I guess chassis is my name, interface for that considers all the things you need in order to make a chiplet marketplace. And we're going to have a follow-on on that in a couple of weeks. In terms of our activities, we're still sort of focused on building a board test chip. That's one of our big things. And DJ and the end users working group is reviewing proposals from many companies. On the POC side, we're trying to go for a storage workshop around an idea of an S3 proxy. You're demonstrating an S3 proxy in our POC to build an application infrastructure. We're targeting 625. We've got speakers from Samsung, Seagate, and I think hopefully Western Digital, and we're looking for participation from SNIA. Our idea is that we want to build an infrastructure on our POC so that we can hold something like the equivalent of a hackathon in about 6 months. And the others is we've got some decent participation in panels at ECTC. So that's roughly our May. Our work groups continue to make progress. The bunch of wires, OpenHBI, the POC, the CDX work group, etc. I think we're setting ourselves up to be fairly productive in terms of publications in the back half of this year. That's basically my update, John.
Okay, thank you, Vapi. Does anybody have any questions or comments on ODSA? All right, thank you. Next on the agenda, we have a OCP sustainability introduction. Dharmesh or Jordan, which of you wants to present on this?
So I think Jordan is going to project the slides. I have one introduction slide and she will go through the rest of the presentation.
Okay.
Perfect. So let's get started. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, John, for giving us this opportunity. Jordan, next slide, please. So many of you in the volunteering leadership were involved last year when we went through the identification of top challenges which OCP community should work on. And we went through the voting process and the top 5 are listed here. So each of these are being worked on in separate work streams. Today we are going to talk about sustainability and circularity, which is an effort which got launched in January of this year. The goal of our sharing this information here with this group is twofold. One, obviously, we want to give an update on where the work stream is heading. We want to get feedback from all of you on the direction because this has an impact overall in long run with all other work streams going on. And then we also solicit everyone here to come and join us and influence the direction of this particular work stream and make sure that we are heading in the right direction so that it matches with all the needs and requirements and constraints with all of you here in server group have. So with that, I will hand it off to Jordan.
Great, thanks DJ. Hi everyone. For those who I haven't met yet, my name is Jordan. I'm part of the sustainability team at Facebook, and I've been fortunate enough to help lead one of the substreams that have come out of the overall sustainability and circularity work group. Just to orient everyone here, there's a larger work stream meeting with sort of everyone, and then we've broken out into 2 substreams, one focusing on sustainability metrics, and in particular life cycle assessment metrics. If you're not familiar, I'm happy to go through kind of what that means. And there's also another substream happening in parallel around hardware lifecycle extension. So more focused sort of on the circularity side. Wanted to share, like DJ mentioned, where the metrics and LCA substream is heading. We've defined this mission and goal for the group. I won't read out the whole thing, but wanted to call out a few key kind of takeaways here. We want to, not reinvent the wheel. We know a lot of some of these standards around reporting and metrics for sustainability exist. So where we can, we want to identify and point to those. But obviously, as we see gaps in our process, we'll fill those in. The intent is to tackle all of the key life cycle stages of any kind of contribution that would be contributed to OCP. So components, system devices, and at the facility level. When I say key life cycle stages, I mean, upstream in the supply chain during its operational use phase, and then also end of life. And then the intent is really to publish these metrics and methodologies that are relevant for this community, so that we can move towards reducing the environmental impact over time. So sustainability means a lot of things, as many of you know. So one of the first exercises we went through, and is really where we'd love to get this group's feedback as well, is not trying to boil the ocean all at once, but really kind of focus in on some key areas that the group did a light touch sort of prioritization effort on. So, in the sustainability world, we could have focused on energy, water, waste, greenhouse gas emissions. And after doing this light prioritization process, we've narrowed it down to greenhouse gas emissions, again, across all of the key life cycle stages. And then we also did a prioritization of the system scope. So, we could have looked at the facility or the edge, but the group decided that looking at the IT devices and also extending that to the equipment that goes into the data center itself would be the scope that we would focus in on. This is what we're targeting to work on over the next 3 months and 6 months, really trying to get in some quick wins early on. So in this first 3-month stint, I've talked through some of the work we've already done, such as the prioritization of impact areas and system scope, but we're also really looking to socialize this work and not do it in a vacuum. So that's why we're here today. We also intend to share this work with the storage and network and data center facility work groups as well. Now that we've honed in on some focus areas for the group, pending, of course, this group's feedback, we will then send out a survey to the broader membership to get a baseline understanding of how organizations that make up this community, what methods, what communication formats are they currently using, and really leverage kind of the leadership that we have within the community and create kind of the standard for everyone. So, some of the things that we'll be looking for is whether companies are willing to share their own completed life cycle assessments. I mentioned this at the top, but these life cycle assessments are basically you inventory all the environmental impacts of some product or process end to end. And it requires a huge amount of data collection from your supply chain. But what you come out of that with is you have a keen understanding of what are the significant drivers of environmental impact for that product or system. And so what we're looking for is, are members willing to share some that they have done internally, or perhaps they've already shared it publicly? And then, can we define a process for members to share that openly within the community? So after this 3-month stint, we're hoping to have KPIs and metrics clearly identified, and a baseline understanding of where the community is on these topics. And then in the 6-month time frame, which would land us quite nicely before the OCP summit in November, we're going to work on developing a white paper that will document sort of the methodologies and ways to measure or calculate those metrics and KPIs we identified in that first 3-month stint. And the outcome of that, again, would be a white paper with a case study example. We're considering, possibly a life cycle assessment of the OCP NIC. And so with that,
I just wanted to highlight one thing in the previous slide.
Sure.
So as Jordan mentioned, one area obviously is the KPI and metrics identification, and that's actually very relevant to the server project, which all of you are involved in, because the KPIs and metrics can be at many different levels, and they can be for many different areas. Obviously, it can be for systems which are being developed and worked on by the project here in the server group. And we would love to get more ideas contributed on what makes sense, and as well as we would love to have critical feedback from all of you here on what would be very difficult or stretch for the community here to kind of work on with the timelines which we are showing here. So the idea is, we want to come up with some method of measurements in some areas very quickly, and that's where would love to hear everyone's contribution here. Yeah. Thanks, Brad.
So yeah, so this is Shailaja. So are we talking about the upcoming ones or the existing ones? Because and every company has their criteria, right, for meeting the environmental specifications. So it's not. It's probably almost as similar, but it's not exactly the same, right? So what will be the criteria in that sense?
Right. So you asked a couple of questions there, Shailaja. One was whether it's for existing products or the ones which are coming down the line.
Correct.
I think the short answer to that would be coming up with a example criteria for existing products might be easier than the ones which are coming down the pipeline. So that's a simple answer to that question. And we pick a product which is easy, not something which is very complicated, because we need support from end users, we need support from suppliers, we need support from many different value chain players who contribute to the measurements and KPIs. So that's the first part. The second part which you asked was, companies are doing things already internally, and how does that tie with this? Like Jordan mentioned, we are not trying to reinvent anything to the extent possible. So wherever we can reuse some of the methods which companies are already developing and which make sense from the community perspective, we should use those methods. So we encourage, for instance, Microsoft is involved in these initiatives, Shailaja, and we encourage Microsoft to share some of their methodology and influence what they are doing, and maybe that's one way to approach that, right? So we are not trying to reinvent things, and we are not trying to impose things. Two very important parameters, right? We are not trying to come up with something new to the extent we can avoid it, and this is not an edict that this is how it shall be done. In fact, we are looking for help as much as contribution by having these discussions. So does that answer some of the
kind of. Yeah, no, kind of it does. The thing is, if you go with the existing, right? I mean, whatever that has been designed or their function or their lifetime, I mean, it's already set. So I don't know if anything we can change. I mean, if you're just collecting data, okay, where we are today, and then where we want to be, I think I think that probably makes more sense. But I mean, you won't be getting. I mean, say you have a certain target, right? That cannot be expected to be kind of met in because it's already out there and right. So
I think maybe to help provide some context, we're really looking at this, disclosure is like a very powerful tool. I don't think we're not setting performance requirements per se on any contributions or any past contributions or products, but the idea here is to very simply identify what are the metrics that companies are currently using to understand greenhouse gas emissions across their product's value chain, and essentially share those best practices and create a standard for what one could disclose. But we're not saying that anything in the past needs to be changed as a result of that. We could envision if in the future, for instance, and DJ, keep me honest here, we could envision a future where, for instance, with every contribution, you also have to disclose, say, the carbon footprint of your product, in its scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3. So that's sort of more along the lines of where we're thinking. But again, this is really valuable feedback to hear, and welcome your thoughts on that.
I hope you're not discouraging contributions with that.
No. So let me clarify. We are, this is crawl, walk, run, right? So, Sailaja, we are trying to first develop education around what exists and how people are going about doing things. And that's where using existing device helps, because we don't have a framework to begin with. So how shall we define a framework? We define a framework by using an existing device or one which doesn't exist and coming down the pipeline. Using an existing device is a good way to develop something, just to say this is how the measurement works. And then that framework gets applied to the new devices, and then you can start tweaking the outcome and influencing the future direction. Sustainability is not a 6-month project or a 3-month project or even a 2-year project. It's going to take 10 years to achieve many of the goals which companies have set themselves up for, and this is the journey which we are taking. So the first step is, let's agree on how to do a measurement, because there could be disagreement right there. And once we agree on it, now let's take an example device and see how the measurement looks like. Okay, that requires sharing information. Again, a new framework is required. What kind of information should be shared? What's the legal structure for sharing information, so on and so forth. And then once that's in place, okay, now let's look at new things which are coming down the pipeline, and can we set some boundaries to bound certain numbers, so that companies now have a right behavior to move in those directions. I think that's the general steps we are envisioning of moving. This is not to restrict any contributions. This is not to basically be in any way an impeding a factor, but this is more of a parallel factor.
yeah, understood. Thanks.
Sure. And Simon, I hope that addresses your concern as well.
I'm sure that concern is shared by others, but your explanation was down to point. Thank you.
And by the way, these are excellent points all of you are raising. In fact, this is precisely the reason why we are here, because we don't claim to have all the answers. And this is a problem which requires multiple contributions from many different perspectives. So all of your perspectives are not only welcome, but we actively seek them. So please be very vocal about them.
Yes, that's a probably a perfect segue to, we would love everyone's involvement here. We definitely have a good representative group in the starting kind of meetings that we've been having, but would welcome everyone here to please join, encourage your colleagues to join the substream as you're able to, and yeah, feel free to reach out to me or DJ if you'd like to get included in on that. So specifically, I kind of called these two things out, but we'd like to request your feedback today on, do you agree that greenhouse gas emissions for devices and IT equipment is at the right starting point for this work stream? Would welcome feedback on that. And then in the future, we would kindly ask that we will be issuing a broader survey to the membership to get this baseline understanding of how companies are currently leveraging these types of sustainability metrics and LCAs in their existing work. And we'd kindly ask for you to look out for that and complete it when you when you see it in your inboxes. Yeah, so now I guess if we have time, I know we may have gone over our allotted time frame, but appreciate any additional thoughts or feedback on what we shared today.
Okay, thank you, Jordan. If you would add any links to wikis in the chat. I didn't have those to include in the agenda. So if there's any wikis that for people to look at for more information, include those in the chat for us.
Sure thing.
And Jordan mentioned that there are two substreams. She gave an update on the matrix and measurement work stream. In next month or so, we will also come back and talk about the life cycle work stream, which is being run by a few other folks. So just an FYI. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Jordan and Dharmesh. Next up, we have Alan Chang presenting the OCP general purpose enterprise server workstream discussion.
Hey, John, can you see my screen? Yeah. John, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes.
Okay.
Are you going to present?
Yeah. Can you guys see my screen? For some reason, just
not yet.
You know what? John, can you do me a favor again? I'm sorry. Go to meeting. I changed the setting multiple times. Just didn't work for me. So can you show that link I sent you earlier? Yeah.
Oh, you'll have to bring that up. Hold on.
I'm sorry. I thought I had it this time, but I guess not. You know what? Try this.
Okay.
I think you, John. Hey, hello everyone. So I just want to give an update on the work stream that we have on general purpose server. Actually, you know what, John, your screen is a little bit blurred. Let's see. Actually, you know what? Not this. Am I seeing the right deck? Are you guys seeing the OCP sustainability, or are you guys?
Yeah, I also see the same thing.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Wrong link. Yeah. Oh, there we go. Okay. All right. So yeah, just want to give you guys an update on the general purpose enterprise server spec. Obviously, it takes longer than we expected to actually come to a consensus on what we want to do. So just want to give you an update, guys. Can you go to the tenant compliances? That's probably something I want to talk to the community about.
Which one?
The tenant compliances. Yeah, go down a little bit. Yeah, there we go. So for some of you might not have heard about this work stream. The idea is actually working with multiple OEM partners, right? Come up with a common spec, so we could cover a product in 1U and 2U, traditional 19-inch product, and then cover the traditional what we call the enterprise market spaces. And I think we try to include as much as of the OCP element. There's a lot of great idea I heard today, and I think will be something we want to including in the future specification on the updates. But the idea is we want to include as many as OCP element that we have seen so far in a traditional 19-inch form factor. So a lot of people can enjoy that at a little bit lower entry barrier, we call it, right? So I think having 4 OEMs willing to actually come up with a common spec and make it available in the market space within 12 weeks, that's going to be something very, very having some impact, right? And in terms of the efficiency, we definitely make a conscious decision, making a choice of doing something with a 19-inch because throughout the last couple of years, as an OEM, we have heard a lot of customers will want to try the OCP gears, but going all the way to OpenRack or Microsoft Project Olympus, it's a very steep process for them, right? Some of the infrastructure has to change. But they do love the idea of having OCP element, like the OCP NIC card and some of the ideas that we have talked about, like open software, firmware, openness, and things like that. So we want to make sure we have a product that's available in the market space that could be easily adapted without having. It's a baby step for them, right? Before they go into the full scale, going to change their infrastructure. And I think as far as for the impact goes, it's really hard for actually 4 OXMs, right? Including HP, Flextronics, Inspire, and Supermicro to come together to have a common spec. So it does definitely take some time to come up with something like this, and it's taking a little bit longer than expected. For finally, we're here. So I think we all committed to have this base spec and then have a product associated to it, make it available in 2019. So I think that's the tenant part of it. Okay. Is there any question on this one so far? I'm gonna pause for 1 second because I think most of the people probably haven't heard about this work stream too much.
So this is Philip. I'm from Boyd. I'm interested in helping out this team for thermal solutions if you need it.
Okay, absolutely.
I'll send you an email also.
Okay, thank you. All right. So let me, I think in terms of the specification we went through last time, the only thing we do change is, John, can you go down, scroll down a little bit? Yeah, in terms of the requirement. Thank you. So yeah, the overview right here, you can see we try to fit it into a conventional 19-inch product, right? 19-inch rack. And on the specification, we want to support the highest TDP offered by the silicon vendor, either by air cooling or advanced ACS. Yeah, like if there's an ACS solution that's applied to it, we want to make sure we follow the OCP specification. So it's on the detail side of it, right? And then we want to support high performance, either 1 DIMM per channel, or there's going to be more than 1 DIMM per channel, that's fine. But minimum is 1 DIMM per channel, and then support balance, NUMA balance PCIO subsystem. And then we want to support the enterprise IO requirement, which is, drives in the front, NIC cards in the back, and PCI slots in the back, right? And then of course, OCP NIC card interface is a must. And then last but not least, we want to provide a pathway to sustain the firmware by making source code available. Earlier, we as a group, we kind of call out OpenBMC and Linux boot as a must requirement, but some of the team among the work stream feel like that kind of too specific in some way, and then we don't want to commit ourselves more than what the OCP guideline is asking for. So we want to make sure there's actually open source available either on the BIOS and BMC. But other than that, I think it will be it could be AMI based, it could be open BMC, it could be any form. But we would just want to make sure there's open source code is available in the market space. Okay. All right. So I'm not going to go through the entire detail. I think we're going to make this available in public for everyone to review. And then we would love to have your final comment on what we have thought. And then we will want to work with the incubation community to have this contributed as part of the base spec. But you can imagine there's going to be a product spec associated to it. And there will be more details such as a Gerber file, design file, and thermal simulation mechanical file 3D, and that will be part of the product contribution from each one of us who have been working on this work stream. Okay.
And Alan, when do you expect to make this public?
We will make this public available to review.
It will be on the wiki shortly.
Hi, this is Rolf Brink from the immersion group within ACS. There is great interest from the immersion community for content like this. Would you be able to present the enterprise server in the immersion community as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, send me a note, and I would love to have this talk about in immersion cooling. So if there's anyone in that group, I would love to talk, give us comments, and that would be great. Yeah, that would be one of the good things.
Yeah, and has immersion been considered in the design of the system? It's not a question I'd like to ask.
Yeah, I cannot say for the entire the 4 in a base comment, but for Inspire specifically, we do have an intention to actually to bring some sort of immersion cooling, but the timeline is TBD so far. But yeah, we can take this offline, and then we can check a little bit, and then I can communicate with the other 4 company, right? Supermicro, HP, and Flex, see if we can all join you guys, and then see if there's a common ground on that topic.
Right, would be perfect. So what we would be looking for the immersion community, as in terms of a presentation, would be just an overview. What does the system look like? How is it designed? Because it's the participants to that community that will eventually deal with these server specs as well.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's good for the community to know about it.
Yeah, I would love to get some requirement from you guys too, like if there's anything we need to avoid, right? You make sure that works out. Yeah.
Well, it's also just a heads up. Hey guys, this is what's coming, and that will be good. Thanks.
Yeah.
All right. So thank you very much, Alan. Like I said, that presentation will be online if you want to review the whole thing and provide feedback to Alan. I strongly encourage you to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So we are pretty much out of time. The DCSCN workshop update, I know you were wanting to present. Do you want to do a 2 or 3 minute presentation on that CMAC, or do you want to defer that until next month?
Next month is fine. If you would just please put it in the wiki so I can make reference to it.
Yeah, your audio is definitely breaking up, so it sounds like you're having connectivity issues as well.
I'll send you a note.
Okay, yeah, I'm not sure if that's on my side or if anybody can't hear you, but I'm not hearing you. You're breaking up too much. So we'll defer that until next month. Gia, do you have any closing comments on Foundation or Incubation Committee?
Yeah, John, thank you for sending those links. Those are updated template and checklist. So please take a look. And I think major change since last version is to differentiate the accepted and inspired. There are different level requirements. The intention is to make it easier for inspired tier in the supplier requirements. Then for the accepted, there is in general more requirements and higher bar in order to drive the most higher level of openness and quality.
All right, thank you. Yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
Everyone can review the template and supply requirements and provide any feedback to the mailing list or to Gia. And looks like we're losing people quickly. It's a couple minutes over, and looks like a lot of people had a meeting on the next hour. Anyone have any final questions or comments before I close the meeting? All right. Well, thank everyone for joining, and we'll talk to you next month.